What's up everybody, welcome back to another episode of Morg's Brew. Today I'm going to show you guys how to weld in 3 simple cuts. So on a farm, you often end up with things that you've never done before. Welding was one of those things for me. I had never welded before coming here, and it took me a long time to figure out how to weld. The way you weld is you cut the most important thing first, so that you have to put it back together. And that makes welding easy because it takes it out of your control, and it means that you have to sort this out. You don't have a choice. Once it's cut, you've got to put it back together. So that's the quickest and easiest way to learn how to weld, is to cut the most important thing first. Stick with me, let's get set up, let's get welding. But first I'm going to show you my kit, my setup, what it is you will need to weld and why it is important for each of these components. So in order to start a welding project, there's a few things that everybody's going to need to have. Most importantly, a welder. And nobody's going to be doing any welding without a grinder. So the way I like to set it up is I normally have one guy always on grinder, one guy always on cutting. Got a number of spare cutting discs and grinding discs. And then we've got a wire wheel to do some brushing up as we need to. Auto darkening helmet. This is crucial. You won't be learning any welding without one of these. This was the first thing I bought, and yeah, that got me through all the dark days of bird shit. Some nice welding rods. These are 3.15 mil 6013s. So now that's telling me the thickness is 3.15 millimeters on the core, covered by the flux. The flux is the 13 on the 6013, so it's telling us about the flux, and the 60 is telling us about the strength of the weld itself. So it's 60 pounds per square inch on a flux 13, 3.15 millimeter thick core that you're putting down. You're gonna need a chipping hammer. You have to have one of these things. Chip out your flux between your welds, wire brushes, and once you've got your tools set up, it's down to the protective gear. So let's check that out. The more confident you feel, the more likely you are to succeed in this. Short pants are a no-no. You don't put short pants on. You'll burn the shit out of your inner thighs, and you don't fucking need that in your life. I've developed my own safety rules here. I like to have something on my head, because those sparks from the welder and things like that, they jump over the top of the helmet and they land on top of your head here. You get it and it burns, but you don't need one of those things. And then denim jacket, because if you see that, that's from touching a bit of hot weld. Bare skin to weld. Don't want that. So I put this guy on. It's hot today, but I'm still dressing up because it's the way it is. Nice pair of denims on the bottom. And then you got your big blue gloves. So helmet, of course. No such thing as being overcautious when it comes to welding. Those sparks are aggressive and you don't want to end up with them on you. The safer you feel, the better it's going to be. So this is how I will set myself up. I'm ready to go and address that problem. It's going to be a little bit of a project. We're going to run this over a few episodes, so this is one of those farm necessities that just has to be done because I can't afford to take it to somebody else to have done. So I'm going to do it myself. Why not? Perfectly capable of that. Well, I am once I've cut that important part. So let me just show you quickly my plan, and then I'm just going to get to cutting. So today we're going to strip this top guy off with just a bunch of bolts that we need to take off. We're going to take off these side linkages and this top linkage, and then we can get some more access to this frame. We're going to stick to the front section of the mower today. We're going to clean up the structural bar over here on the front. We're going to clean up these structural bars. Clean up this side over here. We're going to look at welding that crack across our frame there, and welding back another linkage onto this guy. Okay guys, I've been busy with this grinding and cutting, and that's just the thing with welding. Most of the welding work comes with a prep, and that's because you can't weld dirty surfaces together. So you got to get those things nice and clean, brushed up, and ready to weld. So like I said earlier, we're just going to look at that structural crack here on the front and the one arm that's hanging on. So let me show you what I've got and how I plan to go about putting it back together. So I've managed to cut off the front piece over here, that flat bar with just the sheet metal. I need to rejoin this to this. I have to, not need to, I have to rejoin this to this. So this is the cut that I'm talking about. This is the type of cut you make. You make a very important cut, which means you have to fix it. And then I've gone ahead and cleaned up this corner here around this crack, so I can fill that furrow up nicely over here. Then what I've going to do is I've got this piece of scrap old hinge over here, so I'm going to put this guy onto here when I'm done. So once I've filled that all up, I'm going to weld this in here just so it puts a lot more metal onto this corner piece. And then for this front piece, what I've done is I've beveled these edges over here, and I've got this piece of half channel and weld that onto the front so that it's sitting like that, holding on this bottom bar. Be prepared, but don't be scared. You know, you got to be protected with this. You don't want to worry about catching on fire or burning yourself. So all these sparks and things it's aggressive, man. When you're working with metal, it's aggressive. It fights back. It's like being in a boxing match. You fucking hanging onto the grinder or you're dodging some sparks. Just have faith in yourself. Together. It's not the prettiest you've ever seen, but it's not weld porn, but for me it's good enough. What I've done, or what I always try and do here, is run a bead inside here. You want to get it nice and neat like that, so it's all about consistency, and then you got to pack them. So you can see I had to start off inside this and build them out, and here I've got 2 beads on the outside. And then running uphill, you know, when the direction of your weld also dictates the method of your weld. So when you've got a thing you're going up, you don't want to run down with it. You actually want to weld up and pull the metal up with you. If you run down, you end up with lots of running stuff. So figuring out your direction is key, but I don't know it all very well, so I'm not going to try and teach you that. You kind of learn on the job, figure out what works for you and what doesn't. You have to burn rods. That's how you learn. You burn the rods. It's not very pretty inside here, but I've got a lot of metal around this guy now. A lot of extra metal added on. And you can see it's very clean. Like, it's because all these surfaces were nice and clean when I started. So I clean up that surface and started. But let's head over to this one now. Like I said, we're going to put that piece of channel on here. We're going to try and weld it onto these edges from the inside and outside, and then onto here. See what we can do. There we have it, guys. That's what we've done. 2 little welds, taken us all afternoon. But anyways, it's been fun. And I'm glad I've done some welding again. It's been a while since I've done some welding. There's quite a lot of work to do on this mower, so I reckon this is going to be a multi-episode project. And then we leave our signature. Straight up. MB, Morgs Brew. There we are. Morgs Brew the welder. The welding project has begun. This is going to be a beast. So that brings us to the end of another episode of Morgs Brew. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for staying. If you are here at the end, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. What I try to do is just give you guys a glimpse of some of the things you have to do on the farm. Welding is one of those things you have to figure out. And I've had to do it on the fly. Taught myself what to do. You can do it too. There's nothing terribly tricky about this. It's just time behind the stick, eh? Putting sticks into the metal. Metal on metal, burning rods, man. That's how you learn. That's the only way to learn this thing, is to burn your rods. So thank you for joining me. Thanks for sticking around for another episode of Morgs Brew. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next week for another brew.